Payroll Relief. My name is Div Bansali. I'm a Vice President of Marketing at AccountantsWorld here, the parent company of Payroll Relief. I want to thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be hearing from Tyler Winn, CPA, who's one of Payroll Relief's customers. And Tyler has had really amazing success with his payroll processing business. He's going to walk us through how he's built a successful payroll practice and also a little bit about his specifics in terms of how he sells, how he markets himself, his workflows, his pricing structure, and then where he sees the future of his practice and payroll in general. So the agenda for today, we'll be going through a quick introduction to Tyler Winn in just a moment here. But really the main goal today is for you to be able to learn how a practicing CPA has been able to leverage the Payroll Relief solution and his own streamlined processes in order to effectively grow his practice. Tyler now processes over 170 payrolls with just one staff member, and his clients rave about his service, as we'll see in a few minutes here. So we're going to talk about how he's able to achieve that. I'd like to, at this point, go ahead and introduce Tyler Winn. Tyler, are you on the line?
I'm here. Hey, Div.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today. So Tyler, I know some of the people who are listening in today might be familiar with you, but most of them probably are not. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up deciding to focus on payroll?
Yeah, sure thing. I'll give you the brief version. I did graduate with an accounting degree. Went to work for a Big Four firm, and did that for a couple of years. Got a little disillusioned there, and went and did some internal audit consulting work for a couple more years after that. And just the whole time was just kind of itching to get out and do something on my own, but I wasn't really sure what that was going to be. I landed on maybe starting my own CPA firm, and had a handful of clients that were willing to let me take on their bookkeeping work. So I did that for about a year, and then found that they were somewhat disillusioned with the payroll services that they were working with, some of the big national providers that all of you have heard of. So I approached them and said, hey, why don't you let me, I'm doing your bookkeeping and accounting, why don't you let me do your payroll as well? So that's honestly how I got my start in payroll. After doing it for a couple of clients, I really kind of fell in love with it, to the point that I decided I'm gonna risk it all and kind of start from scratch. So I actually let my bookkeeping and accounting work go, and just to focus on payroll. I could see the potential in building a business model just around the one service, especially with, I started on Payroll Relief, so I saw the potential for profitability and for serving clients really well. So that was about almost 6 years ago. I've been doing just payroll through Cirrus Payroll for about 6 years, and really haven't looked back since I made that initial decision.
Great. You mentioned a little bit about seeing the potential for this business early on. How would you describe that initial vision that you had for what you wanted your payroll practice to look like?
It was really important to me that I would be able to work from anywhere. So if I wanted to work from home, if I wanted to work from coffee shops, if I wanted to at some point with my family move to a different city or travel or any of that, I wanted to know that I wasn't going to be tied down to a physical location. That was a huge part of what I was envisioning. And so Payroll Relief fits the bill there because it is 100% cloud-based program. So that was one thing. And then I just saw that with, and I know we'll probably talk about some of this as we go, but the kind of the pricing and the cost structure of Payroll Relief, I could see that I could scale up and become more profitable over time. I couldn't really see an end to the limit of clients that I could potentially bring onto the system, as long as I had the proper processes and really good staff to service our clients. And payroll is great because it's recurring revenue. So we get paid every month or every time we run a payroll. And to me, that was a little more intriguing than some of the other work I was doing. So those are a few of the things that attracted me to payroll.
Great. Great. Yep. So all the things that you mentioned, we will get into more detail in terms of pricing and setting up a business and starting to sell and so on. Before we go ahead with more of the presentation, I want to learn a little bit about all of you, the attendees today, and learn a little bit more about what you're currently doing and what you'd like to get out of today's presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll question here. And so you should be seeing a poll question in front of you. And the poll question is just, I currently offer live payroll services, yes, no, or I will be soon. So we just want to get a sense of, are you already in the live payroll processing game, planning to be in there, or not at this time? So if you could go ahead and just place your vote there. Remember to click the submit button to make sure that we can see the results and that you're included in there. And we'll just take another 5 to 10 seconds here to allow people to go ahead and vote there. All right, and we'll close up here in about 5 seconds. Going once, going twice. Okay, great. So we see overwhelmingly 3/4 of you are currently offering payroll, 20% of you are not, 6% will be soon. That's great to see. And I think that we're going to have a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about will be applicable to all three of those responses, but it's good to kind of see where you are right now. And one of the things that we really wanted to do today, Tyler and I have kind of talked beforehand about some of the different topics that we could cover today, but we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that are most relevant to you, especially if you're already doing payroll or are thinking of doing payroll. And so one other quick payroll question, or poll question, excuse me, that I'm going to go ahead and put up here right now. And so this one is, which topic interests you the most? Are you most interested in learning about how Tyler prices his services? Are you most interested in learning about Tyler's workflow that makes him so efficient? How Tyler's getting new clients? His process for sales and marketing? How he defines good customer service? Or how Tyler handles payroll for other areas as well. So if you can go ahead and select, and this is a multi-select, so you can select more than one here. So please go ahead and let us know which topics are most interesting to you, and I'll make sure to sort of shape the rest of this hour around what you guys are saying. So we'll take another 5 to 10 seconds here for people to go ahead and get their votes in. And I want to thank you for giving us your input here. It's definitely helpful for both Tyler and myself. All right, going once, going twice. Okay, here we go. Okay, great. So a lot of you are very interested in Tyler's workflows. That's terrific. We have a lot to be able to share with you there. How Tyler prices his services. We can talk about Tyler's pricing and how that corresponds to how Payroll Relief is priced as well, and how those work together. And almost the same number, over half of you also said how Tyler is getting new clients. So we can definitely talk about that as well. And we'll try to cover the other two topics as well within the time that we have here. So thank you for sharing that with us. All right. So let's go ahead and start with workflow then. So Tyler, let's talk a little bit about how you do it right now. And I think some of the areas that we're going to want to focus on here is a little bit about how you're managing internal processes, how you manage permissions within your system so that you can control the process, permissions with your clients, what collaboration with your clients looks like, particularly when it comes to data entry for payroll, payroll review before you process it, printing of checks, your opinion on printing of checks and how you handle that, client snapshot, and then also for scalability, what you do in terms of batch processing. Is there anything else from a workflow perspective that you'd like to mention as we go through this?
I mean, I think that'll hit on kind of the main processes that we use. I would just say up front that a huge key for us has been defining up front how we're going to process payroll for our clients. We don't let our clients define to us how they want their payroll processed. Obviously, we listen to their needs. We take all those things into account, but at the end of the day, we have a workflow that has worked very well for us, and the clients we have love it. And so we as the business owner, I made a decision up front. This is what our process is going to be, in alignment with how Payroll Relief works, and this is what's going to serve everybody most effectively. Once we've decided on what that's going to be, we document it. So we have internal workflows, internal guides, checklists, so that when a new staff member is brought on, they're brought into an existing workflow. They're not really they're obviously bringing habits and personality and all that too, which is great, but they need to fit into the process that we've created, because otherwise there's no way that we could service the number of clients we do so efficiently. But that's not just about us. What I found is, and there's a lot of accountants on the call, I think you could probably agree with this, but clients need some degree of training sometimes. Sometimes they don't really understand the easiest way to do things for themselves. And so if we can guide them and say step by step, this is how we operate, it really serves to benefit everybody. So that's kind of what I would say up front, but we can kind of get into the nuts and bolts too.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. The idea of standardization over exceptions processing as much as possible. Now, we all know that there will be some level of exceptions and individual situations that will come up at times, but I think, and this has been a theme that we've talked about with you as well as with other power users of Payroll Relief, the idea of you create a process that works for you with the software that you have and with your staff, and then that becomes documented, and that becomes fairly structured and repeatable time after time after time. And I think that's such a key to success. Yep, that's a great point. So we're going to go into some of the screens and individual functionality and tools, but before we get into that, I want to start with the fact that you've decided to use Payroll Relief as your full service payroll system. Tell me a little bit about that decision, why you initially decided to use Payroll Relief.
So, I mean, so I kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, but the fact that it is a cloud-based program that allows me that flexibility, and also we're a paperless company, so we're not mailing reports, mailing checks, anything like that. So Payroll Relief has the flexibility to work for a company like mine that wants to do things that way. Now, if you want to print and mail checks, that's everyone's kind of personal preference, and that capability is there. But for us, it just overall fit the kind of vision I had for what the firm was, what I wanted my company to look like. The pricing was very appealing. I know we'll talk more about that, but so many software, payroll softwares have upfront license costs that can be, I mean, I've talked to companies that charge anywhere from 10 to, I had one company quote me a $37,000 upfront license fee to get on their system. So there's really no upfront license fees with Payroll Relief. So as a startup, I mean, when I started out, I had like 2 clients that I was going to bring on the system, but I was able to really just pay for what I needed at the time and then scale up. So it was one of the only softwares that I would say kind of made sense for me as a startup with a vision to grow.
Great. And we'll talk more about how it's helped your profitability. We'll look at where the ROI of Payroll Relief has fit into your practice in a little bit as well. So let's go ahead and jump in here a little bit. So this is the payroll snapshot here. Tell me a little bit of, we've got a cell highlighted in yellow there in the next tax due date column. Tell me a little bit about how you use that column to stay on top of your payrolls.
Yeah, so this is the screen that my staff is going to, this is like the home screen. This is like control, command central. And there's so much useful information here. So honestly, the column we use the most is that process date column. Depending on what the lead time is for direct deposits for a particular client, the system tells you the date that you need to process that by to get that payroll done on time. So my staff can log in every day and they know exactly the payrolls that need to be run for that day. And then these other columns are also very helpful. So like that next tax due date, it tells you when the client's next state or federal payroll tax is due. I mean, it's kind of self-evident, but what that does is it allows us to monitor and make sure that there's nothing that we missed on the setup, because honestly, Payroll Relief is taking care of almost all the tax payments in the background. So once as long as we've set up the e-services correctly, after we process the payroll, the system is debiting the client, the system is scheduling the correct deposit date for that payroll tax. But this column gives me extra peace of mind to know that, if we, which rarely ever happens, but if we made a mistake that we didn't turn e-services on, we can see that tax date approaching and see, oh, the system did not pay that. So I need to go in and fix my setup so that happens. So because of that automation in the background that's happening and an extra check that we have on approaching tax deadlines, we don't have payments go out late. It just doesn't happen because of those controls that are in there.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So no matter what size business you originally started with or the payroll practice you have right now, this makes sure that you're staying on top of all the processing dates that are coming up without any exceptions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the checks are there for us to efficiently run. Yeah.
Great. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about employer permissions. Now, Payroll Relief has some pretty sophisticated client permissions screens and capabilities. What's your overall perspective on client permissions? How do you decide what things you want clients having access to and what things you don't? And then if you can talk a little bit about how Payroll Relief supports you on that.
It comes down to as the firm owner, how do you want your payroll processes to operate? For us, we want our clients to be able to go in and make some changes to their payroll. So we want them to be able to go in and add employees, terminate employees, change direct deposit, update W-4 allowances, all those kind of basic tasks. And then we obviously give them access to all the reports, so they can pull any of the dozen reports that are in the system. And then we allow them access to the payroll entry screen and then to calculate paychecks. I've decided that it's our job to manage, kind of the tax compliance side. So we're the ones that are making sure that the tax IDs are entered, that e-services are properly set up. We're the ones that are filing the W-2s. So I've decided to close off those portions of the program to the client, because to me those are some of the most sensitive areas and ones that we need to make sure that we're managing correctly. But then we give our clients access to do some of these day-to-day tasks and to run reports and then to enter their payroll. Now they don't do the final approve on their payroll, although you can give access to them to do that as well. So when they I guess we'll get into this on the next screen, but and we can kind of talk about what that looks like. But that's how we've set it up. But if you went in here and you said, I just want to provide a platform, maybe you have a more sophisticated client that wants to go in and do everything. They want to manage the tax forms and all that. Maybe they're used to it, or they have, a payroll person in house that can do all of that well. You can open up the whole system to them. So it really comes down to what you want your offering to look like.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think that is actually the perfect entry point into the next screen here, the payroll entry screen. So do you use the default numbers that are already in here, or how do you use those?
That's the nice thing for any salaried employees or employees that are getting the same number of hours, or maybe they're getting a recurring allowance of some kind. You can build that in the employee setup, and then it will just automatically populate, so you don't have to come in and fill in numbers that never change. Now the client is the one that's filling out this screen, so that's making their life a little bit easier. But for us, the way we've set up our workflow is the client is coming to this screen, entering any hours, making any changes, and then once everything looks good, they hit that calculate button in the top right screen, and then that takes them to a review payroll screen, which I think we can look at next.
Yep, let's go ahead over to there. Okay, here we go.
So they can see their total cost of payroll, a summary on the side here, and then that blue report button in the top right pops out this report that is on the screen, the payroll register report pre-approval. So they automatically, and it takes no time at all. I've used systems where you send the payroll for calculation, and then sometimes you have to set up the system so that it will email you when it's ready to review, because it's taking 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on the capacity of their servers. That's not happening with Payroll Relief. When they click calculate, they come to this screen, they hit report, it pops out, it's 5 seconds. So they're automatically able to review their payroll and just do a kind of a last check. And then at that point, this screen is not set up for submit, but since we don't give our clients access to approve, there's a submit button on there. So then they hit the submit button, and what that does is that sends a message to the assigned staff that says this client has submitted payroll and it's ready for final processing. So then my payroll manager logs in, does one quick check to make sure there were no exceptions or errors, and then she'll process the payroll. And I think if we went to the next screen, it may show the check printing screen. Yeah, so when she logs in, this is what she's clicking. She's clicking this approve button, and that's scheduling the payroll. That's scheduling the ACHs and doing all the final calculations and everything. And then if you go to, I think one more screen over.
Okay.
Hopefully I'm not rushing through this too much, but I just wanted to show kind of step by step how it works. Maybe one more, because I want to see that check printing screen, then we can come back. So once the payroll is approved, then my payroll manager sees this screen, and there's basically 1 or 2 more steps and she's done. So there's an email reports button that will send a set of reports to the client that we decided what we want in that packet. For us, it's a payroll register, a payroll summary, and then a payroll comparison with the prior payroll. That goes out to the client. If they want to print checks in-house, or if they want their pay stubs to print and hand out, we can hit that email checks button, and that emails it to them. So literally, this is the process. The client is the one going in, entering the payroll, doing the calculation, doing a check on the register to make sure everything looks good. They hit approve. An email goes to my payroll manager saying it's ready. She goes in, does a check, approves, sends reports. She's done. For simple, smaller clients, for her to do this, it takes maybe 20 to 30 seconds, and you've got a payroll run, and you're done, and you move on to the next. So it's very seamless, very simple to manage, and this is a huge part of what's driving our efficiency. It's just the fact that we can move so quickly through these screens and get a payroll processed and done.
Yep, that's great. So you can see sort of through the process how we're creating efficiency all the way from initial entry through review and into submission as well. Let's go back for just a minute because we did miss one slide here. And so some of the things from approved payroll that are automatically calculated and submitted. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things on here?
Yeah, honestly, the first one, the first bullet point there about the notcha file being done in the background is huge. A lot of payroll softwares out there, it's doing the calculations, it's doing some of the things that we're talking about, but then you have to have a separate relationship with an ACH processor. So the system will generate a notcha file for you, a text file that you then download to your computer, and then you log into your ACH processor's website, and then you upload it and check if there's any errors or anything you need to fix. And then if there's, NSFs or there's, bank accounts that are wrong, you have to be monitoring these reports. And because at that point you are impounding the taxes into your own bank account, you have to reconcile that bank account, and that can be a beast to manage. So this is one of the huge things that I think is a little bit underrated about Payroll Relief, is the fact that you really have a back office on your side that's taking care of all of this, the complicated ACH processes in that banking relationship. It's not something you have to manage at all. Mm-hmm. So seriously, when you approve the payroll and send reports, you do literally move on. There's nothing you have to remember to do at the end of the day to send that extra file off. So that's huge. And then it does calculate the tax liabilities. It schedules the debits to the client's account, obviously schedules the payments to be deposited to the government agencies on time. It's keeping the tax forms updated. And then, yeah, there are dozens of reports. A lot of them can be run by latest pay date, so or by any date range. And so there's a lot of reports that are instantly available for you to send to the client, or for the client to log in and view for themselves. And then again, it does email after you approve the payroll and send those reports. It's sending them a PDF copy of really everything that they need. So it's just a super efficient process that if you're managing it correctly, there's not a lot to really worry about, honestly.
And actually, that's a perfect segue. There's a question that just came in from Shannon, who asked, how does your internal review process work? What kinds of internal controls have you built? So if you could talk a little bit about, in terms of managing within your firm, how you handle that.
So internal controls, I mean, one big one is that there is an audit report that you can run out of the system. You can run it by client, or you can run it across all your clients that will show, if somebody went in and changed a direct deposit or added an employee or changed a tax ID. All of these things are captured in an audit trail. So if something weird does happen, you can go back and see the exact user that made that change and when they did it, and follow up. Other controls would be the payroll comparison report that when in that preview packet, you can do a comparison. So if this payroll is 50% higher than the last payroll, you can easily dig in and see, okay, where did that come from? Was somebody paid incorrectly, or maybe you see a couple bonuses that got paid on the payroll, and that explains the difference. So those are some of the checks. There's definitely more, but I feel comfortable that there's enough checks and balances in the system. Oh, the other big thing is really an ACH kind of a cap. When you set up a new client in the system, we tell AccountantsWorld this is about how much direct deposit that we see this client needing to run. So if they run a payroll that exceeds that limit, it doesn't mean that you can't run the payroll, but if it goes up to an unreasonable amount, you will get an error. Not an error, but really just a warning. And so there's also those kind of checks, because I've had clients come to me from other services. Like I had one that this guy got a $90,000 direct deposit from another company. This is from another payroll company. They had an employee get a $90,000 direct deposit. And I said that could never, ever happen in our system because a red flag would get raised. So hopefully that answers the question, but those are some of the controls that make me comfortable within the system.
Great. So we took a look at the check printing screen. And then at this point, I'd like to bring in Roger to talk a little bit about batch processing and how batch processing and Payroll Relief helps to build a scalable practice. Roger, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Roger Batista. I'm going to have a pleasure talking to you a little bit about batch processing. Batch processing is a group of features in Payroll Relief that allows you to do multiple things. In other words, to really run a payroll practice. So everything that you do for one employer, you can actually group it into every single employer that you're running payroll for. And whether you're doing approving a payroll, or whether you are printing checks, or whether you're e-filing the W-2s, or making the W-2s available to the employee portal. Same thing for the 1099s, or even client communications with your clients. You can actually send canned emails that we already have prepared, requesting information of the employer, at the same time also giving you the ability to have custom emails that you can create to your own liking and send to specific employers, or all the employers that you're doing payroll for, via the click of a button. So these are the same tools that the large payroll bureaus use in order to be able to run thousands of payrolls. So whether you're running 5 payrolls or 50 payrolls or 500 payrolls, all the batch processing tools really expedite the processing of the payrolls, from approving to check printing to ultimately at the end of the year doing your W-2 and 1099 filings and collaborating and communicating with your client. Is there another? Great. So here's a screenshot of the things that it does. As I've mentioned before, the payroll approval, the check printing, the processing of the W-2s, et cetera, and client notifications. And it's built into Payroll Relief. So you can actually process payrolls one by one, or you can utilize these tools to really take advantage of a lot of productivity and speed in running payrolls in your practice. I do want to say that one of the things that, in all the features that we added to, and the way we actually sell payroll relief, we have designed payroll relief in all our products at Accountants World to make sure that they're geared for the accounting professional, the payroll professional. We don't compete against you. Okay, it's very, very important to understand. We really work very, very closely in hand with you to collaborate and ensure that your practice will grow, and we don't use you for marketing, for reasons of marketing to your clients. We don't communicate with your clients, and this is something that we've been doing for all of our 30 plus years in existence. And this is also one of the reasons why Tyler and many of all of our users have chosen Accountants World, besides all the great features that Payroll Relief has. Div?
That's great. Thank you, Roger.
Can I piggyback on that real quick, Div?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Yeah, so that is a huge thing for me, because there are payroll platforms out there that kind of have two sides to them. So there's the side that they'll license out through their partners, through accountants and payroll services, and then they'll have a full service side where they're actually directly servicing clients. I won't name any names, but I'm sure you guys know who some of those people are. That's not happening at Accountants World. They are strictly licensing the product through accountants and through payrolls, payroll providers like myself. I know that they're not directly competing with me. And I know that they're not going to go around my back and try to pull a client onto their full service side. So it's just, to me, that gives that is a big difference. And I just want to emphasize from a perspective of a user that has made a difference to me.
Yeah, and I'll just say from a sort of differentiation standpoint for us, we are a one-track company, meaning we are accountants first and accountants only. So we don't have any other audience really outside of accountants and professional payroll providers. There's no, as Tyler and Roger both mentioned, there's no contact directly with your client. It's all managed through you. The system is set up with your branding on there as well. And so it really helps to not only help you get your work done as efficiently as possible, but also to make sure that you are putting your brand forward and the value of your brand to your clients continues to grow, rather than us growing the value of our brand in front of your clients as well. So Tyler, if it's all right with you, let's go ahead and take a look and talk a little bit about sales and marketing for your practice.
Okay, sure.
All right. So in terms of getting new clients, how did you get started? When you first started your practice, what was your approach to getting new clients in the door?
I would say it's the approach of a lot of people that are starting up something, from zero. I didn't really know how else to get clients except to build a website, make some business cards, and just start networking like crazy as much as I could to get my name out. We're in kind of a mid-sized market. Tulsa's not a huge city, but it's also not a small city. And so there's a lot of people that like to buy based on relationships. So I knew in my particular area of the country that I needed to get out and let people see me, meet me. So, my first clients were friends and family, friends of friends. Word just kind of started to get out of what I was doing. That's how I got my first handful of clients. And then I did get clients through some networking groups, through getting involved in my local chamber. That was kind of how I got started. And then it's kind of grown from there. I don't know. Div, do you want me to go a certain direction with this, or do you have another question, or I can just kind of expand?
Yeah. So I think in terms of you mentioned a little bit about some of the ways in which you got this started. Were there some lessons that you learned from that, or are there things that you focus on more now, or perhaps focus on less than you used to when you first started up?
I think the biggest lesson learned was that general networking and marketing is good, but it's better to be specific. And so where I finally hit my stride is when I realized that I'm not really getting a lot of clients from just general networking. I'm really getting it from networking with other financial professionals that are talking to people that could become my clients. So I've been in a little bit of a unique position because I am a CPA, but I only do payroll. And so when I meet CPAs who don't want to do payroll, that's just a good fit. And so I've gotten a lot of referrals that way. Now, that's not limited to that. When I think we can be networking with all kinds of financial professionals. So bankers, tax preparers, bookkeepers, attorneys, insurance advisors. There's a lot of different people out there that are talking to small businesses, and what they do is they hear the need when it's happening. So they hear their client complain about the payroll service that they have, or they have a client coming in saying, I need to set up a new business and I'm going to be hiring people in the next month or two. So if we can network with other professionals that are hearing those kinds of things, and build that relationship, then when they hear that need, they can send them to us. And that's honestly the by far the biggest way that I've grown, at least from a sales perspective, where I'm out there relationship building. That's probably the biggest lesson I learned, is that targeting the right people to network with is a huge key.
Yep, and I'll piggyback on that. I come from a marketing background. I've spent 15 years in marketing management, and I think marketing in any field right now, but I think particularly in something where it can be a little bit difficult to differentiate yourself at face value, such as in payroll, I think targeting is so key. I think really focusing in on what kinds of partnerships you want, what your channels are going to be for finding prospects and leads, and where you're going to go after them. I think, and this is true for accounting services and tax as well, but certainly in the payroll space, trying to be presenting yourself as a full generalist is generally going to be a less effective strategy than figuring out a specific angle you're going to have, either in terms of the types of clients you want to go after, the types of relationships you want to build locally that will help you to get leads, or the types of services that you're going to very specifically provide and focus on. So I think that I encourage all of you to really think about that in terms of, in one of those areas, there better be a way in which you're really trying to be as specific and differentiated as possible. Not necessarily in all of those ways, but I think it really needs to be there in at least one of those. Tyler, can you talk a little bit about your strategy and your thinking on hiring sales reps to help you out, and how that's evolved over time?
Yeah, it really has been a natural evolution, because I needed an extension of myself in the local market as we've grown. I mean, when I started out and I had a handful of clients and I was just building, I could do both. I could hustle and get out there and meet people and try to drum up new business. But then I also, because of the efficiency of the system, I could continue to keep up with my clients. You know, I could run a payroll on my cell phone, you know, after I got out of a networking, you know, breakfast or something. So those were kind of crazy days, but that's what I needed to do to get the job done. As we've grown, now that we have the number of clients that we do, there's a lot more managing I'm doing as the owner of the company. And I really don't have time, honestly, to get out there like I used to be able to. So hiring a salesperson to me was someone that could replace me, be an extension of me, reflect the integrity of our company, be a friendly, likable person, and get out there and do those kind of things that I used to do but don't really have time to do. In order to do that, obviously you have to compensate this person, right? So that's one of the reasons it took me a while to hire somebody, is I needed to build up some financial strength to be able to do that. But the way that I brought on our first salesperson, and I just hired this year for the first time back in June, an outside salesperson. And I set the compensation structure up as a base salary, plus kind of a two-part commission. So the base salary is nothing to write home about, but it will pay the bills while they're building up the business, and honestly, and hopefully incentivize them to get out and get new clients. Because when they close a client, I give them a one-time commission of a certain percentage of the revenue that we anticipate the client will bring on for the next year. So she gets that right off the bat, which is just a nice thank you for, you know, bringing a new client in. And then kind of interesting other piece of it is that I'm giving her a recurring revenue piece. So I'm, in addition to the one-time commission, whatever revenue that client brings on or brings into the firm, as long as they're with us, there's no expiration date on it. I'm giving her a percentage of that as well. And so that's what's going to build on that base salary and allow her to become financially successful over time. She can make a lot of money if she closes enough clients, but at the same time, it's not a significant financial outlay for me at the beginning to be able to bring somebody on. So that was my strategy, at least for how I've brought on a salesperson, and it's working out really well so far.
So what I hear you saying is sort of that consistent message, just like you talked about how Payroll Relief's pricing, which we'll get into in a little bit, sort of matches your ability to scale up your payroll practice. You don't have to take on too much risk at the beginning. Sounds like you're doing the same thing with your sales rep as well, sort of trying to minimize your exposure at the beginning in terms of flat cost. But if the person does a great job and is able to not only get the business but keep the business and keep it growing, then they get compensated very well for that as well.
Exactly. Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about testimonials. Everyone says they want to get testimonials. I'm gonna show in just a minute here about, frankly, I think the uniquely amazing job that Tyler and his firm have done in terms of getting testimonials. But tell me a little bit about your approach to it. How do you get so many testimonials, and what are you looking for in a written testimonial?
Yeah. So let me just make a quick comment about marketing in general for our company. What I'm finding is that getting new clients really is we have kind of a two-pronged approach right now. So now that I've got a salesperson that's working locally to get clients, now it's freed me up to focus on the marketing aspect, which to me is more the inbound marketing piece, where we have a good web presence. We have a powerful website. We have social media that stays updated with interesting content. We have an e-newsletter. All these kind of things are now what I'm focusing on, which is fun for me because it's higher level, kind of more strategic. And so a part of that has been testimonials, and just having when people search for us on Google, or when people look on our website, they can see a ton of clients, very, very happy clients. And I do have a specific procedure for getting those. Like I said at the beginning of the call, we do pretty much map out everything we do in our company. So as part of our onboarding checklist, once the first payroll has been processed, I set myself a reminder for 1 month out to follow up with that client for a review. I wait 1 month because sometimes the first payroll or two can be a little bit bumpy. We do everything we can, but it's the beginning of a relationship, and so sometimes there's some kinks to work out, and that's fine. But usually by the time we run their second payroll, everything's great, everybody's happy. And that's usually about a month out. So what I do is I send a personal email to our contact there at the company, and I ask them to write a review, and I make it very, very simple. I say, step 1, click this link, and that link takes them directly to the page where it pops out the review screen on Google. I say, write us a 5-star review, and say a few words about your experience with us. It's a friendly email. It's again, I'm telling them exactly what they need to do to write the review. The funny thing is, almost nobody ever does the first time. They almost never write the review the first time I ask. So persistence for me, without being annoying, is the key. I wait 4 or 5 days usually, and then I send them a follow-up email and just say, hey, I noticed you hadn't written a review. If you were able to do that, it would really make my day. And I find that that's where I get the response. So when I do that follow-up email, I get 50 to 60% of people to go and write the review. Now, they actually have to have had a good experience. So serving the client obviously is the key. I can't just ask for reviews but give crappy service and expect that they're going to go out and rave about us. We have to give them something to rave about. And so obviously that's the foundation of what we're doing. But at the end of the day, the persistence and that kind of process and that consistency of always asking for the review and then following up has really, really paid off. And I've been doing that really since the get-go. And that's what has allowed us to build up, that social validation over time.
Yeah, but I'm gonna jump in here for a minute. So, Tyler, are you seeing my my browser window in front of you right now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So So folks, Tyler is talking about sort of from a process standpoint, how he's getting effective testimonials at exactly the right time. I want to show you what this actually ends up looking like from a potential client-facing perspective, from a lead-facing perspective. So this is on his website, SiriusPayroll.com. You can go to the testimonials section, and you'll see a few testimonials here, and then you'll see more. And I came to this page, and I was thinking this page has got to end at some point, but there are more and more and more. And what is really impressive to me as a marketing person here is that this hits the exact right balance of quality and quantity. I can tell you from a marketing perspective, having a bunch of people writing 5-star testimonials for you, but they all say the same things, and it's clear that they've been coached on what to say, that's not very useful at all. Google knows how to filter those things out. Yelp knows how to filter them out, Facebook, etc. And more importantly, people who come and read those know how to filter those out, and then they end up actually hurting your impression instead of improving it. But these are really, really great testimonials. And I think part of that is not only the quality of service that Tyler's providing, and obviously we'll talk a little bit more about customer service that he offers in a little bit, but the other part is that he's presenting it at exactly the right time when they're capable of talking about it. So I think it hits the exact right balance there of being not too early, but not too late in terms of asking for it. Now you get all of these testimonials, and Tyler has many of these same ones on Google as well. And here's the impact that ends up happening. So if I do a search on payroll in Tulsa, and I come down to the map, and this section right here, what you see in front of you, for prospects, this is the most important part of the Google search results. And you all know what percentage of your leads and prospects are likely to search for you or for any provider on Google. It's a very, very high percentage, and it keeps on growing. What you see in front of you right now, that map along with the top providers within that area is really the key, because a lot of people will never get past this. And what you'll see here is Cirrus Payroll is the first one that is listed, and Southwestern Payroll Service is the second one that's listed. And then Paychex is the third one. Now, I want to point out two key differences between Cirrus and the two that are listed below them. One is you'll see the 5-star average rating out of 63, right? 63 people reviewed Tyler's firm here on Google, and they've given an average of 5.0, which is almost impossible. From all the businesses that I've worked with and consulted for over the years, I don't know that I've ever seen that. Southwestern, not doing quite so well. 3 reviews, 3.7 average. Paychex sort of speaks for itself. I don't think any of us are going to be dramatically surprised by that result. The other thing I'll mention here is, Tyler, what year did you start up Cirrus Payroll?
2012.
2012. And do you happen to remember the year that Southwestern Payroll Service started up?
I think it was back in the 50s or 60s.
Yep, I'm pretty sure the answer is 1956. So Tyler gave his competition a 55-year head start and is now beating them on Google. And I think this really points to, we tend to think of marketing as sort of this long game where tradition and having been entrenched is a real strength. But most of your clients are going to be finding you through Google and other channels where you can build up a mass following pretty quickly and really achieve high quality results if you're committed to doing it. So when we think about sort of how testimonials works and how it fits back into marketing to future prospects, I think this really shows the power of that. And I really encourage you to sort of think about testimonials in a really discrete way and in a concrete way, and really make that a focus if you're not already doing so. Tyler, anything else you want to add from a sales and marketing perspective before we move on?
I think I'm good to move on.
All right, sounds good. So another way that you're looking to differentiate your firm is on customer service, and this is something that you and I have talked about before. And one of the things that both of us, I think, agree on is just simply saying that you're focused on customer service is not enough, because that's something that everyone says. Every provider, if you ask them, or if a prospect asks them, what do you do differently, everyone is going to point to a high level of service. What does good customer service mean to you? What do you think really differentiates Cirrus Payroll in terms of service?
So, I mean, I agree with you that the term customer service is so overused that it's literally meaningless. If people read that on their website, their eyes are not even going to see the word probably. They're just going to scan over it. They're not going to see it and say, wow, finally a company that gives good customer service. I'm going to work with these guys. It's not happening. So what you have to do is you have to figure out for your company, what does customer service mean, and then talk about it in that way. For us, I mean, we've been at this for almost 6 years. And I didn't know at the beginning what good customer service, I mean, I did the best I could with all of our clients, but I don't know if I could have sat down and made a list of what that meant. But now that we've been at it for a while, I've been able to give words and to give verbalization to what customer service means for us. So what it's come to mean for us, and I call it the Cirrus Pledge, is really 3 commitments that we're making to all of our clients. That come on, and those 3 pledges are that our clients will never work with low-level, high-turnover data entry clerks because we're only going to employ knowledgeable, responsive, college-educated, and credentialed professionals. That's automatically going to set you apart from ADP and Paychex because that's who people are used to working with there. High turnover. They put people through these training programs for 2 weeks and then throw them out there to run payrolls. That's not what we're doing. We're hiring true professionals. So that's one thing that's setting us apart. The other thing is that we give our clients our direct phone line for calling or even texting. There's no 800 numbers. That's going to differentiate you again from some of the national providers. And then the last thing is that we want to give our client a consistent person to work with from the get-go. So we have the same payroll specialist, both onboard and service the account. That's a little bit different. Sometimes other services have an onboarding specialist. Sometimes they have the sales rep onboard the client. But then at the end of the day, when it's time to run payroll, they get passed off to somebody else who was not a part of that, who's now expected to know and service this account. I decided that we're not going to do that. We're going to have all of our specialists are going to be well versed in onboarding, and they're going to handle that process. So the client, from the day that they sign the service agreement, they have a consistent point of contact within our firm. So that's how I've defined it. Again, it's going to look different for everybody. I think it takes a little introspection, a little meditation maybe, and think about the things that you're doing right, and that you can progress in further, and then start to accentuate those things within your marketing copy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about pricing. We'll get into that a little bit here. So if you can talk a little bit, and we don't have to get into exact specifics here, but if you can talk a little bit about your pricing model right now, especially as it relates, let's say, to biweekly payroll, and give some information on there, and then also how you're trying to position yourself versus ADP and Paychex on there. And while you're answering that, I'm going to step away for just 2 minutes here. I'll be back in just a minute here.
Okay. So with pricing, I mean, it varies in different markets as far as what those acceptable market rates might be. So it's taken me some time. Obviously, we've transitioned dozens of clients at this point from Paychex and ADP, and I've seen a lot of their invoices. So I know kind of what their price point typically is. Obviously I don't know what the formula is, but I have a ballpark view of what that can be. So where we've kind of come in on pricing is I try to price about 10 to 15% below where I think Paychex and ADP are pricing at. They can be a little bit high compared to other services. So they actually kind of work in my favor because they're setting kind of the standard of what to expect from a national payroll service. I can come in and say, we can do all those things, but you also have, personal contact, a payroll specialist assigned to your account, and all the things that come with our Cirrus Pledge. And we're also going to be able to price a little bit lower than them. So obviously that works in the client's benefit, and then it also allows us to be very profitable. I'll throw out just some kind of ballpark numbers. So the way we price, and this is this is how Payroll Relief is set up if you do your billing within the system, is we have a base fee per payroll and then a certain dollar amount per check. So for example, on a biweekly payroll, it's gonna vary. I don't have just set prices. I have kind of a range that, depending on the client's needs and the complexity of that particular account, I may adjust it. But on a biweekly payroll, it's going to be usually anywhere from maybe $30 to $50 as a base fee, and then we usually charge $3 per check. On a weekly, the base fee will go down because we're running 4 payrolls that month as opposed to 2. So I bumped that base fee down a little bit to compensate for that. And then on a monthly payroll, that base fee goes up because I want to make sure each month that we're kind of hitting some targets on the minimum amount that we're going to make. And we can also run quarterly payrolls through the system as well. And I think we're charging around maybe $200 a quarter for that, for very simple, like single owner S corp, that want to pay themselves once a quarter. So that's kind of where we're falling on pricing. What we do, one thing to really differentiate ourselves, I'm sure many of you have seen the Paychex and ADP's invoices. I personally can't make any sense of what they're charging for or where the number is coming from. So typically the invoice will be one page. It'll list 15 to 20 services that they're providing, most of them of which the client is taking no advantage of, like some of these HR services, garnishment services. Even if they don't have any garnishments, they'll still list that on there. So it's a plethora of services, and then it's just a random dollar amount off the side, like $136.79. So the client, they don't really know what they're paying for, or what, if they're even using what they're paying for. So for us, coming out and saying in a payroll quote saying, you have 5 employees, this is going to be your base fee for payroll, it's going to be $3 per check. That's incredibly simple. And to me, people gravitate towards simplicity. So if you can price in that clear kind of a way, that again is a differentiating factor from some of these other services.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, just one thing I was going to jump in with, and then any other points you have on here are certainly welcome. We talked about, and we showed on the screen, sort of the Payroll Relief is all about efficiency and automating the process and creating really, really clean workflows as much as possible. That then comes all the way through and filters in through pricing and fees as well, because having that efficiency upfront because of the automation that's provided, that's the reason that, number one, Tyler is able to process so many payrolls with just one staff member. And then number two, it's the reason that he's able to provide competitive and, just as importantly, very clear, consistent, simple pricing as well. And clients gravitate towards simplicity and understandability in terms of pricing. So it becomes not just a efficiency advantage, but it actually becomes an advantage from a marketing and sales standpoint as well.
Yeah, and Div, I just thought of one thing I wanted to say. This is a little bit unrelated, but I don't want people to come to this webinar and hear me talk and think, I'm doing all these payrolls with one staff person. I must be working this person to the bone. Like, they're working from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night every day. They're frazzled and they hate their job. As far as I know, that's not true. My payroll manager actually has space in her schedule. She has time to breathe. And I pay her well above a market salary for her position. We offer health benefits. We have a retirement plan that the company contributes to. We have vision and dental. We're doing things that you would not expect the payroll service to be able to do of our size. As far as employees, and that's going to give us retention. But the reason that I have the capability of doing that is because of how I price. It's kind of a big circle. It's like if I price at the right amount and then I service the client really, really well, then I can bring on the right kind of staff that's going to stay with me for a long time. And that, again, that high quality staff is going to circle around to client service. That high service is going to allow me to keep my prices at more of a premium level. So it's like it's an upward spiraling effect that really the benefits trickle out to everybody, to the firm, to my employees, and to our clients. So I know it's a little off base, but I just want to mention that because pricing isn't just about how much money can I make off my clients. It's about what kind of an overall company am I trying to create here for everybody involved.
Great. So let's talk a little bit more about how we are pricing and how that reflects into what Tyler is able to do here. So Accountants World has priced Payroll Relief for you to achieve as much success as possible the first year, and then to be able to use that as a springboard to grow the way that Tyler has as well, to whatever level makes sense for you, whatever level of scalability works for you as well. So for the first year, to design the solution for as much growth as possible, there is a flat fee for unlimited processing. And that flat fee is $1,495. That's an all-inclusive fee for the first 12 months. And when we say all-inclusive, that means no additional fees for W-2s or 1099s, no additional fees for e-filing, EFTPS, or state EFT, no fees for any direct deposits, and support is included as well at no additional cost. So you can contact us whenever you have questions as you're going through your first year of processing with us as well. So obviously, if you already have a payroll practice running, this can be a springboard to really huge growth and profits during the course of the first year because you're not paying for any of that scalability, any of that growth during the course of the first year. You're just paying one fee that covers you for the course of 12 months there.
And that's amazing for companies, if you don't mind me jumping in again,
sure,
for companies
please.
that have an existing client base. For me, I was a startup, so this was fantastic for me to get in the door. But if you have an established payroll client base that you're maybe looking to move off of one software onto Payroll Relief, I mean, this pricing allows for amazing profitability that first year, and you're still going to obviously be hugely profitable in the coming years. But that first year, while you're learning the system and everything like that, that's to me, that's huge. If you're bringing 20, 50, 100 clients or whatever or more onto the system, to know that no matter how many clients you're bringing on, that's your fee, that's incredible.
Yep, that's a great point. And as you said, it works for startups like yourself, and it works for companies that are already doing it as well. I saw a couple of people have just asked recently, well, what are the fees for W-2s and 1099s and all these other things after the first 12 months? And my answer is, I'm glad you asked, because after the first year, the pricing is on a per paycheck basis. And as we showed, it's a sliding scale anywhere from $1.15 for the smallest amounts up to 45 cents for the largest number of paychecks that you're buying. And again, it's all inclusive. No additional fees for W-2s, 1099s, direct deposits, and support is included there as well. So for Dan and the other folks who asked about that question, no additional fees for those, no incremental fees after the first 12 months either. We just simply switch from one flat fee to a per paycheck basis. And just to show you again what those what the breakdown of paycheck volume looks like a little bit. If you are buying 1,600 paychecks, that's $1,840. That works out to $1.15 per paycheck. If you double that, or slightly less than double that to 3,000, then you're paying $1 per paycheck, and then it gets gradually lower from $1 per paycheck all the way down to potentially 50 cents per paycheck or even 45 cents per paycheck. So we have many firms who started with us at the first tier or the second tier during their second year working with us when they were paying on a per paycheck basis, and have eventually built a business that has gone up to 50,000 paychecks or even 100,000 or more. And what they're paying on a per paycheck basis has gone down dramatically, as you can see on the sliding scale here. And at the same time, the fees that they're charging have stayed the same or even gone up on a per paycheck basis. So, so that means that all of that additional scalable revenue is going straight to the bottom line at that point. So Tyler, I'd love to kind of get your closing thoughts on where you'd like to take your payroll practice in the future, and what you sort of envision as the future of Cirrus Payroll.
A couple thoughts here. One is, you know, to me, the sky is really the limit. I mean, I see us being, I don't see any reason for us to leave Payroll Relief and grow to a high scale. I think this may have been in the email that got sent out about the webinar, but my next goal is to get to 1,000 clients. I think that's totally possible, and with the efficiency of the system, I could see myself doing that and hiring 3, maybe 4 additional staff to handle that. So that's very exciting to me. We're continuing to grow, find new ways to market our services, both locally and throughout other states as well. But I'm very excited to continue to grow on this platform. One thing about Payroll Relief that I don't know if we've really touched on is, as a cloud-based solution that you're paying per paycheck. Not only are those amounts decreasing over time and what you're paying, but the system continues to improve at no additional cost to users. From where the system was 6 years ago to where it is today, the system is still, the core of it remains the same. It's kept the integrity and the simplicity of the workflows that we've gotten used to, but there are updates being made constantly. There's, for example, we have a lot of our clients on a particular time and attendance system, and an automatic import button was just added for that. So we're able to import the hours from that timekeeping system now, and that just has further streamlined, what we're doing. So there's constant improvements going on. I'm excited for the future of the program to see, the direction that it continues to grow, and I could see us. I don't want to, create a goal that I can't live up to, but I could see us, if we do things right, I could see us hitting that many clients in 5-6 years. So I'm very excited about the platform and kind of the direction that my company's going.
Yeah, and that's incredibly exciting growth that you've already achieved and potential growth for the future in terms of your goals. Considering that you just started 5 years ago, that's really pretty amazing there. And then we'll get here to the closing, and I'll go ahead and preemptively put up the thank you for joining us today slide. Any questions that you have, 1-888-999-1366. You can talk to one of our payroll development consultants right away. Operators are standing by. If you'd like to learn more about Payroll Relief, you can go to accountantsworld.com/PR for Payroll Relief. And we're also on social media. The best way to get our updates is on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, just do a search for Accountants World. You'll see our company page. We have over 40,000 accountants and professional payroll processors who follow us on LinkedIn. We're one of the biggest accounting and payroll related providers of information on there. So that's a great way to stay in touch with us. So let's go ahead and take 2 final questions here. How do you position yourself against ADP? I find their reports to be hard to understand, and they introduce complexity, etc. Is that something that you've experienced as well, that you can provide a simpler, cleaner experience for your clients? And what other advantages do you see with Payroll Relief?
I mean, the simplicity of the program is what I've always loved about it. That's kind of what drew me to it in the beginning. Is the screens aren't jumbled and complicated. The reports aren't hard to decipher. It's very straightforward. I mean, we've brought people over from ADP that got put on products that they never should have been on, and they come to us, and it's like a breath of fresh air, because it's so simple to run their payroll. The reports they get are easy to read. They're not hard on the eyes. So competing with ADP is not that difficult for us, because they are usually on one of the they're probably one of the highest priced up there with Paychex. So coming in and beating them on price isn't that hard. But with ADP, the biggest thing is their customer service. You don't have as far as I know, I don't think on any of their platforms that you get a dedicated rep. You have that 800 number that you can call, and you might sit on hold. Actually, I have a prospect right now that's on one of ADP's products, and they're looking to move because they say sometimes we sit on hold for over an hour before someone will even talk to us. And then that person that ends up talking to them is not someone that knows anything about their account. They're just scanning through notes that previous reps have made to try to understand the history of whatever situation they're dealing with. So it's not honestly hard to compete with them, as long as you accentuate those differences that you can that you can give as either local service or somebody that will give them a dedicated rep.
Yeah, no one who has experienced ADP or Paychex in the past and worked with them would ever accuse them of agility or simplicity. So if that's something that's important to clients, and I think it is to most clients, as you're mentioning, I think that's a pretty clear point of differentiation. And Payroll Relief is really geared towards trying to make this as simple as possible, both in terms of processing, in terms of reporting, and in terms of client management as well. Tyler, anything else that you'd like to add before we close out here?
I think I'm about out of breath.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I thank you for the opportunity to share our experience. I think we hit on the major notes. So yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, sounds great. Once again, I want to thank Tyler for joining us today and for all your expertise and insights from running a really successful payroll practice. I know a lot of the comments and questions that we've gotten in here today have been really, really impressed with what you've had to say. So thank you again for taking the time to come in with us today. And thank you again for joining us today. This has been a great session. Thanks for all the questions that people have entered in. I hope we've been able to get to just about all of them so far. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.